Hi, this is part 3 of recap of what we already know. So we are going to go at a reasonably fast pace for this part. Familiar with phasor notation? Yep, I understand that. E bar, script E bar is a vector quantity, real quantity, a function of both space and time, which can be written as real part of E bar, a function of space only, xyz, multiplied by e to the power of j omega t. This quantity E bar is known as the complex phasor, and you're probably familiar with phasor in electrical circuit theory, where it was a scalar phasor, but here E bar is a complex phasor. So it is a function of both uh, space, and it has a direction as well. It's a vector quantity. Uh, as we go along, we will get more and more familiar with this concept. What we are trying to do is write all those equations that we have learned in terms of phasor representation. So we assume e to the power of j omega t notation, and let us take one of the Maxwell's equation, for example, the Ampere's law, and express all those real quantities in terms of phasors. For example, script h bar is real part of h bar e to the power of j omega t, and so on. We have a quantity here, real part of del by del t of d e to the power of j omega t. Since d is a phasor, not a function of time, differentiation, it will come out of differentiation. So we are going to only differentiating e to the power of j omega t with respect to time, and hence we have j omega d e to the power of j omega t. Since this del cross is a linear operator, we can take out the real part outside that operator, and we have real part of something is equal to real part of something. Oh, it is not something, it is something multiplied by e to the power of j omega t. That's the beautiful part. So if you have real part of a e to the power of j omega t equal to real part of b e to the power of j omega t, then a is equal to b. It's very easy to show this. For example, choose some time t equal to 0, omega t equal to 0, let us say. Then we have real part of a equal to real part of b. Choose omega t equal to pi by 2. You get a e to the power of j pi by 2. Real part of a e to the power of j pi by 2 will be imaginary part of a, which will be equal to imaginary part of b. Therefore, a equal to b. Try it out, expand it, try it out. In case you don't understand it, we'll discuss it on Monday. And hence we have the very famous familiar result, del cross h equal to j plus j omega d bar. Now what happens is, if you have a time dependent form of equation, and if you go into the phasor representation, derivative with respect to time will get converted to j omega t, and the e to the power of j omega t is suppressed. We know that it exists. Whenever we want to find the real quantity, what we do is the complex phasor is multiplied by e to the power of j omega t, and we take the real part of it, and we get the real vector value for that field. Now, the Maxwell's equation in phasor notation, we are all familiar with it. I'm just showing it to you so that it will jog our memory, and all these equations are available to us in one place. I'm not even going beyond this point. Similarly, the boundary conditions can also be written in terms of phasor notation. Once again, straightforward. We will be using throughout our course of this these discussions, the phasor notation because of the convenience. Now, some special cases of boundary condition on the surface of a perfect conductor. What happens? Oh, let's define a perfect conductor or a perfect electric conductor. Fields are 0, E1 is 0, H1 is 0. The conductivity is infinity, and of course sigma 2, the medium 2, is not a conductor. It has a finite conductivity. There are no magnetic currents, no magnetic charges, and the boundary condition will reduce to this. Very interesting result. It is probably a good idea to remember these results in a more physically appealing fashion. For example, what does n cross h represent? The tangential component of magnetic field H. Tangential magnetic component of magnetic field on a perfect conductor is equal to the surface current on that conductor. Tangential component of electric field is 0. Normal component of electric flux density is the charge which is residing on the surface of the conductor, and normal component of B is 0 on a PEC. Now, we can also think of a perfect magnetic conductor, and that is by definition E1 0, H1 0, and there are no electric current and no electric charges. Then what happens? N cross H is 0. N, that is tangential H is 0 on a perfect magnetic conductor, whereas tangential E will be minus Ms, the surface magnetic surface current. And normal component of D is 0, whereas normal component of B will give us magnetic charges, magnetic surface charges, which we rarely use this last equation. Most of the time when you are working with a PMC, we will be focused on N cross H equal to 0 and N cross E is equal to minus Ms. These are the two equations which are very useful to us when we are handling perfect magnetic conductor. Now we can talk about power and energy in phasor notation. What is instantaneous Poynting vector? If you go back to the previous lecture, it is S bar is equal to E cross H. Both are script, all are script notation because it is a time varying quantity. Now, if we represent this time varying quantities in terms of phasors, we can write E and H as real part of E to the power of j omega t and real part of H e to the power of j omega t. Notice real part of A times real part of B is not real part of A times B. It doesn't work like that. So what we do is we express this real part in terms of a quantity plus complex conjugate of that quantity divided by 2. That's what A plus A star upon 2 gives me the real part of A. Right. And we expand it now. Next is very trivial, say straightforward algebra, and then collect all the terms having e to the power of 2 j omega t, e to the power of minus 2 j omega t, and without omega t variation, and reassemble everything nicely. And what we have is, oh, this is an interesting one. The first term and the last one can be combined. We get real part of this and plus real part of E cross H star, and you can easily show this result, not a complicated one. If I were to take an average of this quantity over the complete period, that is a time average over complete period, if you integrate this function as over time from 0 to capital T, then integral of e to the power of 2 j omega t will be 0. Notice capital E and so E bar and H bar, they are not functions of time, they are phasor quantities. Therefore, the average power associated with the electromagnetic field is real half of real part of E cross H star. So this is a real quantity. This is the power that is real power associated with the electromagnetic field, with having electric field strength E and field strength H. Now we have a Poynting theorem. We take the two Maxwell's curl equations and we understand the meaning of Ji, sigma E, Mi, etc. And what do? We take E dot complex conjugate of that first equation or the left hand equation. Similarly, we take H star dot the second equation and we subtract one from the other exactly the same way we did earlier and apply the result divergence of A cross B, that expansion, and this can be written as del dot H star cross E. Stop, pause. We are really going very fast here, but my sincere request is please write this down once to make sure you have captured the essence of everything that is happening here. Right, you can change the order of H and E here. We get a negative sign and we can now collect the terms, and it's not very complex to show that this is indeed correct, because what have we done here? Sigma E square remains sigma E square, E dot Ji is still sitting E dot Ji, j omega epsilon and j omega mu has come out. Then we have epsilon E square and mu H square, and apply divergence theorem, and this is our Poynting vector in the phasor notation. Left hand term represents the power that is being supplied by the sources. The first term represents the complex power that is going out of the closed surface S. The second term here, sigma E square, represents the real power lost in the system. And this quantity mu h square and epsilon E square, it represents the energy that is stored, which is purely imaginary. So this is the point. Yeah, let's consider once again this Maxwell's equation, del cross H equal to J plus J omega epsilon E. Which equation is this? Yeah, you know it. We know that J can be decomposed into impressed current Ji and conduction current sigma E plus J omega epsilon E. Fine. What we do is we'll take out J omega epsilon common from the last two terms and write it as sigma upon J omega epsilon naught plus epsilon r times E. Now, this quantity is a complex quantity. Epsilon r minus sigma upon omega epsilon naught J is a complex quantity. Let's label it as epsilon r C. C represents complex. Now, this equation is very nice. Del cross H equal to Ji plus J omega epsilon naught epsilon r C E. Somehow that conduction current got embedded inside the complex epsilon r C value. So this makes the equation, makes the analysis very generic now. We don't have to handle sigma E as a separate entity. It can be absorbed into the second term in the last equation. It has its advantages. More so, if you look at this complex quantity epsilon rc, this can be written as a real part epsilon r prime minus j epsilon r double prime. Epsilon r prime is nothing but epsilon r, and epsilon r double prime is sigma upon omega epsilon naught. We can also express it, take out epsilon r prime common, then we can express it as epsilon r prime multiplied by 1 minus j tan delta, where tan delta is known as the loss tangent, which is the ratio of epsilon r double prime upon epsilon r prime, which is also equal to sigma upon omega epsilon. So if you have a material, a real material, which has certain permittivity, epsilon r prime or epsilon r, and has certain loss or some conductivity sigma, and we are operating at some frequency omega, then we can express this material in terms of epsilon r, sigma and omega, or you can express the property of the material as epsilon r prime and epsilon r double prime, or you can represent it as epsilon r prime and tan delta. You give any two, the other one can be found if you know the frequency of operation. So they are all equivalent. Depending on the nature of the industry, the way a material is specified changes, but most of the times the material specification revolves around one of these sets. We can classify a material as a good conductor or a lossy dielectric, or predominantly a dielectric, based on the values of epsilon r prime and epsilon r double prime, or sigma and epsilon r. We'll look at it, how it happens. Again, let's go back to this equation. JCD, which represents both conduction current and displacement current, is J omega epsilon naught epsilon RC, a complex quantity, E bar. Now we can take out epsilon, we can put the definition or value of epsilon RC in this equation and rearrange the terms. And now you see something interesting. If sigma upon omega epsilon naught epsilon R is very much greater than 1, then JCD is purely real. JCD will be sigma times E. The material behaves more like a conductor. So if sigma, the conductivity of the material, is much larger than omega times epsilon naught epsilon r, then the material behaves like a conductor. On the other hand, if this quantity sigma upon omega epsilon naught epsilon r is very small compared to 1, you can ignore the right hand, that's the imaginary part. What we have is j omega epsilon naught epsilon r, which is epsilon prime times E. That is, the material behaves more like a dielectric. Its loss is very small, but it's more like a dielectric. We could think of it as a lossy dielectric. As we go along, we'll spend more time on this kind of classification. This is just a glimpse of what we had studied in the past.